Tell us about Fearless.tech. What was the brainchild for that, and what does it do?
Yeah, so Fearless, we're a digital services firm. Our mission is we build software with the soul. And the vision that we see is really a world where good software autopower things that matter, right? And you talked about all the technology that's going in this space and people feel like they don't have access. And so maybe it's people programming, services to figure out when to buy stocks and sell stocks and to make as much money as they can. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a large set of technology that's really meant for good, right? And I'm not saying that's not good, but really meant to service and to help people. So you're talking about COVID. People are building programs that make it easier for contact tracers to figure out where you've been and who you've come in contact with. So if someone catches it, they know who to alert. And so technology can be used for whatever purpose that you would have. But Fearless, we really lean in and figure out where we can apply the pressure and to service humanity to make things a little bit better. So that's kind of where Fearless was birthed from, really this ability to how do we use technology to make the world better.
So you start off in Baltimore. Tell us what you did there with Fearless.
Yeah, so starting off in Baltimore, we started off primarily servicing the intelligence and community and Department of Defense, and started to grow out of that space. That space was exciting, but work that we could never talk about. We could never tell people what we were working on and who we were doing it for and how we were doing it. And people would say, you guys sound pretty cool, but who's your customer? No, I can't tell you, right? Well, can I see your stuff? No, I can't show you. So we wanted to continue to make impact. And what we saw was there's a huge space in the healthcare arena, and we're looking at Baltimore City in particular, and there's huge opioid crisis going on and overdose across the city, and they were trying to find a better means to figure out how do they stretch the limited resources they have to be able to figure out where to target in the city to apply their resources to. And so we built them a dashboard to be able to track all the overdose deaths across the city to be able to better manage that, and that kind of got us into the healthcare space, and that grew long-term into federal work. Another piece that really grew us into a customer base at the Small Business Administration was a program called HUBZone, and it stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zones. And long story short, it is a program that the federal government is a part of in the small business space that, they reserve a percentage of their federal dollars to HUBZone eligible and HUBZone certified firms. And what that means is if you're in an area traditionally that has low income, high unemployment, a disaster has been in that particular area, it can be certified as a HUBZone. And what the government says is if you put your business there and you hire 35% of your employees from these locations, and they're able to pump resources in communities that need them. And so we fell in love with the spirit of the program and supporting the community, which is such a big part of what we do at Fearless. And we realized as we dug through the numbers that they weren't making numbers. They weren't making numbers. Billions of dollars are being left on the table. And so we wanted to figure out how to fix it. And part of how we got into this problem set was we looked at their data and we looked at their map, and their map is reporting bad data. People are confused about what is and what isn't and what's expiring. So we took all the data and we built our own map. And that ended up becoming a tool that got SBA's attention, the Small Business Administration's attention, and they asked us to come internal, and they awarded us a contract to modernize all of their HUBZone technology nationwide. And so that's kind of how the.
So anytime anyone clicks into the SBA, that's your technology when they want to access that. That's you.
That's correct. And then now SBA.gov, we run the entire infrastructure for the Small Business Administration.
Okay. So when we talk about PPPs and all of that, you click on SBA.gov. That's your technology.
That's correct.
That's a black man's technology. I just need people to understand this for a second. As we sit and we talk about, all the disparities that are going on, you had the foresight to build this company, and it was so amazing. And again, racism exists. I believe that. But if you do something that no one else can do and you do it better, it's pretty hard to deny folk the opportunity to actually have this as a business. Let me just say this, Delali Dzirasa, thank you for giving me this thought right now, because as I'm listening to you, I'm saying to myself, there's somebody out there. You took census data, right? Data that's accessible to everyone, right? You got it from the census. So the two things, first of all, we got to fill out the census. We have to fill out the census. We have to fill out the census so that you can have the data to plug in, because there's billions of dollars, maybe more, sitting somewhere to dole out, but they can't dole it out if they don't know that there are people there that need it or that can access it, if no one's applying for it, right? So with this, let's go back to HUBZone for a second. I have a business. I want to put it in one of these zones. How do I know that I'm in a zone? So there's money. Talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can click on the map. There's a link for HUBZone. If you click on that, a map pops up. That's our map. You're able to go there and put an address, and it will tell you if it's a federal HUBZone or not. And then from there, you'll find the link to be able to go through the application process that goes directly to the Small Business Administration and to begin the certification process.
35% you have to hire from the community, which is great because that means that goes back. But what percentage would you say is left on the table that we don't even access because we don't know that we should?
A lot. So traditionally, on average, probably the last decade, they've been somewhere around like 1.9, 1.8%. In the last we ran the numbers, it was $8 to $9 billion of spend that was eligible in law, sitting there and not getting to the communities that need them.
And they're not advertising.
$8 to $9 billion.
Yeah, no, I got it. And they're not saying, hey, putting out a megaphone, we have this money for you. Like, you have to know that it's there. So this notion that, they don't want to invest in the community. They don't want, they, you're telling me that there's money there that we just aren't accessing.
That's right. And a lot of the federal government contracting officers, their biggest complaint is, well, there's not enough companies. We don't have the qualified companies that can do the work, and so they go elsewhere. If we can't find HUBZones, we're going to award it to someone else. And so part of it is just showing up and being available and bringing your skill set to the table to get in front of some of these opportunities.
What kind of businesses are funded through HUBZone or in the HUBZone?
All of them. Any service that the federal government procures, anything from a pencil to software to construction to physical, utilities and car, you name it, clothes, anything that the federal government buys, anything under the sun, you can get certified as a HUBZone company.
866-801-8255 is the number. We're talking with the founder of Fearless.tech. And if I'm an average person, I go to Fearless.tech. How do I engage with your company if I'm not the government or some major corporation?
Yeah, if you go there, you'll see all of our links to our social media. I mean, we're big about, you mentioned the community space, and so if you're local in any of the places where we physically are, which is Baltimore and Montgomery, Alabama, feel free to come by, chat with us, hang out with us. I mean, once we're on the other end of COVID, obviously, but we're big into the community, and so check us out online. All of our social handles are there through our website as well.
Okay, so after you did what you did in Baltimore, other cities started reaching out. And I don't think we gave the full scope of what you did in Baltimore. So we skipped to the HUBZone. Tell us what you did in Baltimore, Delali.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple initiatives that we're doing locally in Baltimore outside of some of the project work that we do. We want to help to build a tech ecosystem here within Baltimore City. So that includes really leaning in and trying to provide some tech leadership here in the city. So we run a number of conferences here in the city. So one of them, a DevOps, a technical conference, we brought to Baltimore City. We also are trying to galvanize the community around how do we share and how do we collaborate better. So we have collaboration tools we've set up for the entire Baltimore City tech community to be able to use, like Slack or GitHub we manage for Baltimore City. Two other initiatives I'd like to talk about. Number one is Hutch. So we have a civic tech incubator. We think there's not enough civic tech companies, so these tech companies that are doing good and trying to service the world that way. And so we started an incubator to grow them.
Wait, pause. What is civic tech?
Correct. So civic tech is really just a combination of how to use technology to solve social problems. You marry them together. That is civic tech. And how
give us an example. Give us an example of some pretty dope civic tech companies that are.
Yeah. So a really cool example is an organization called Code for America. They were looking at how we've spent years locking people up for marijuana charges and all sorts of other things, and now a lot of people are getting rich off of that. So it's legalized in areas, and dispensaries are opening. And so what they found is you've had these nonviolent offenders that have been locked up. And half of it is like, how do you just get their record expunged right now? If the records need to be expunged, et cetera. So they built some technology to be able to do that. Now you've got to find the case, you've got to put it in the paperwork, and someone has to click a button and send it somewhere and go, get everything stamped off. And they're saying, well, why do we have to do that? Why don't we take the whole batch and just run everyone through that's eligible to understand and to fast track the process? And so that's a great example of where technology has been used to really to truly transform. There are a couple other initiatives.
Give us that name again, because give us that one.
Yeah. Code for America. Code
for America will help people get their records expunged.
That's correct. They've got software. So if you go to their website, you can find links on how they're linking that and doing that around the country.
Okay. Give me another one.
Yeah, so some of the local projects that we worked on here within Baltimore City around COVID was around the PPE distribution. So there's a local organization that we partner with called Dent Education. And what they do is they've got an entrepreneurial and STEM-based program for inner city youth here in Baltimore. So how they learn how to become entrepreneurs and grow their enterprises. And so when COVID hit, everyone's at home and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we educate the kids? How do we get them earning and thinking about being entrepreneurs? And so they wanted to sell and distribute PPE, so face shields to local hospitals, local community organizations. And so they set up a distributed platform. So kids are at home, they get their supplies, they're building these face shields, and they make money on every face shield they can put together, and they will sell them. And so we were able to provide, through an organization called Hack Baltimore, a technology platform that can manage their inventory and who's been doing what and who needs to get paid what, all of those pieces kind of in the background. But that's a great example of civic tech. So we're solving social challenges here within the city, and kids are at home getting paid.
What's the biggest hole? And as you, because I feel like as you pull the string of tech and you find yourself in spaces that I'm sure you probably imagine, because you have a large imagination, you find yourself in these rooms with big dollars, big organizations. What are we missing as a community? That there's a void in the marketplace that is desperate for our energy and our ingenuity, but we just aren't even looking. Delali, what are we missing?
I won't even say necessarily a particular market. I think it's not even what we're missing. I just think that we are missing, period. There's just not enough of us at the table in general for a lot of these conversations. And so people will build empathy around what they're around, what they see, what they interact with, who they interact with. And so for them to care about, let's say our issues, right, we've got to be at the table, right? We've got to be at the table. We've got to be part of the conversation. We've got to build solutions that are important to our communities. And we're just not at all these tables and not part of these conversations. And so I say we are largely missing, right? And that's a huge statement. But I think there's just needs to be more diversity in the tech space, period, altogether. And I think once we're there, the way we're creative, and so we're always thinking about new ways and remixing something and recreating things and looking at things a different way. And we need to be part of that equation. There's also missing, the investment that goes into, tech companies from a venture perspective. We're starting to see a little bit of that kind of pick up now from some of these large tech firms saying they're creating funds for, minority-owned, women-owned businesses. And so everyone, it's popular right now, and so people are doing it. And I'd say hopefully it's long-lasting, but while it's popular, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it and figure out how you can leverage those dollars to support your venture and your community.
Speaking of funding, and we're talking with Delali Dzirasa, and his company is called Fearless.tech. How did you fund your first venture? And, what did it require for you? Was it more? Did you need more money? Of course, we always need more money, but how were you able to produce your first piece of tech, your first tech company?
Yeah, we actually self-funded the whole thing. So we started off about 11 years ago, and it was a company of one, a lonely little place. And so jumped out, started a company, and my wife was a huge support in that effort. But, earned enough as one and said, can we bring on a second one? Can we bring on a third one? And so it was really organic for us. So we never had that huge jump. And just to talk about kind of the scope over the last few years, so we're a little under 120 people today. And for the first 7, we were about 15 to 20. And so the last 4 years is when we really started to hit this incline. And I think a lot of that has been just being true to ourselves and true to our voice and how we want to do business and how we want to show up in the market. But we were self-funded initially, and we have never taken outside money.
And now you make your money off of contracts?
That's correct.
Okay. And as you're building, because I'm thinking, like, we don't have institutional spaces. Like we do these companies, and maybe it's a restaurant, and maybe we'll have a mom and pop thing over here, but the scalability or the ability to be able to be, which you're heading towards, $1 billion company, what does that require? And can you inspire somebody that's listening right now to get on board and get busy, get started?
Yeah, I think it requires, and I say specifically for the entrepreneur, right? It requires like energy and passion, and it requires focus. So many times we've got, 3, 4, 5, and 6 different hustles, and so I'm a barber on the weekends, and I'm a chef on Fridays, and I watch kids on Saturdays, and I get necessity. At times we've got to make ends meet, and I understand that, but you got to understand, like, this is your dream, right? This is something that you're saying, I want someone potentially to make a bet on me, and it means that you've got to make a bet on yourself. And so my challenge to people is always, you've got to go all in on your dream. And I give it a shot. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Give it a shot. Go all in on what it is that you believe in. Now, that's part of it. Now, I'm not saying that you won't need help, but everyone needs help, and they need guidance along the way. I'd say the second piece is get mentors and people that can help give you direction on what to do. So as long as you're committed, you will find that there are people there that are willing to support. I had plenty of people that were willing to support. Some said they wouldn't, they didn't, and that's fine. But you got to believe in yourself and keep pushing. But you'll find those gems, those people that can give you guidance and give you direction and where you need to go. And then you'll find the resources as you go. But you've got to start running and not get so stuck in trying to think of anything that could go wrong, might go wrong, and you never actually move. Half of it is just starting and just staying in the game.
So after you did what you did for Baltimore, other people started calling. All right, so now you're in Alabama, Montgomery, historic Montgomery, Alabama. During this time, we haven't talked since George Floyd was murdered, and the country's on fire right now. Tell me about that process, getting to Alabama, but also how you see your company participating in the future of what's going to happen next to put this country back together.
Yeah, so Alabama was interesting. We had zero intentions. We put our leadership together, did our strategic planning, and Montgomery was nowhere in the radar. We're going to be focused in Baltimore, and we're going to scale, and we're going to grow here. We got a call actually from an organization, Air Force out of Boston, and they said, "Hey, we like what you guys are doing. Would you guys consider opening an office in Boston?" And we politely declined and said, "You know what? Our network is here. We know the players here. Universities, you got pipelines here, and we're really serious about the community here in Baltimore. So we don't think we could be effective going up there. We don't know anybody, right? So this isn't a good fit for us. We remain close with them.
So you turned down money.
Later,
you turned down a big contract. Okay.
Yeah. So we turned down an opportunity there, and we remained friendly with them. They remained friendly with us. We kept tabs on one another. And then Montgomery called, so a different part of Air Force than Montgomery, Alabama called us. And same thing. They say, hey, we've been watching you guys. We want you to consider doing some work in Montgomery, Alabama. Would you guys open an office here? And so I asked them. I said, well, how did you hear about us? And they said, from the people in Boston. and so I asked them. I said, well, did they tell you what we told them? And so I gave them the same story about our partners are here and our pipelines are here and the community that we serve is here. And they paused for a second and they just had done a lot of homework on us and they said, I know. The reason why we're calling is we see what you guys are doing and how you're partnering with Baltimore, and we want to know will you partner with Montgomery, Alabama the same way. And so for us, that was a real turning point. And what we do has always been bigger than just technology.
So
right?
explain what you do, because I was saying there are people out there that don't really understand what you did in Baltimore and what you're doing in Alabama. Yeah. So explain in a little bit of detail what it is that makes what you do so special.
Absolutely. I think there's 3 parts. And the first part is about how we service our customers. And that is we build technology. So someone comes to us and they have a problem. They want to figure out how to automate something. They will need to figure out how to modernize some system or some application.
For example, give us an example. Give us a real example.
So SBA.gov, the Small Business Administration's front end, SBA.gov is one of our projects. We also run a couple of top-level .gov, search.gov. So the federal government search engine.
That's yours.
Correct. That's our technology. Yes, ma'am. Login.gov is another. So if you ever have traveled overseas and you have a global entry or you've got to apply for your credential online, login.gov is our technology as well. So we partner with the government to build that technology. A fourth one that some may know, challenge.gov, which is the federal government's way of finding innovation out in the marketplace. And so anyone can look at projects across all the agencies and figure out what they want to bid on and what they want to work on. And so that's our technology as well. And so those are. So let me just let's go all the way back. All right. Search.gov, login.gov, challenge.gov. They came to you with a problem. How did you know you could fix that?
Or did you know that you could fix it when they said, we have a problem? How did they present the problem to you? We need what? We need what, Delali?
That's
And you
correct.
said, I can do this.
Yeah, so for SBA in particular, like what they needed was they had their application sitting in a server room. And they said, we're hearing all this conversation about the cloud, and we want to get smart on what the cloud is, and so we need help going to the cloud. And so I said, okay, well, we can do that. SBA also had thousands and thousands of pages that were part of this website, and just so much information. It's tough to consume as a business owner. Like, where do I start, and what's relevant, and what's not, and where do I go? And so part of that was with our teams, how do we pare that information back and say, okay, what is useful, what is meaningful, and how do we re-architect this site so that as an entrepreneur coming in or someone that's needing help starting a business or getting financing, they can find what they're looking for and actually move their business forward. And so we were able to do that and move to the cloud and reimagine how that site works in general and ensure that it's reliable. So you can imagine with the disaster loans that hit recently, as well as the PPP funds that hit, we were part of the new portal that was set up for SBA. Everyone's hitting SBA's website at the same time. A lot of the work that we've done the last couple of years was ensuring that SBA didn't crash, right? And so you have this big need from the community from a national perspective. Is it going to work? And that seems like it should just happen, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on to make sure the architecture is there so that it will survive. And so those are a couple examples of what we've done kind of in that space. But it really spans from design to building technology to helping it to scale so lots of people can access it.
So in the city of Baltimore, give us a couple of things that you actually did that we could say, wow, and what in your process and your approach to really becoming kind of a lifeblood to a city. Explain that.
Yeah, so the first one I mentioned was the health dashboard. So it was the dashboard they wanted to track the opioid overdoses within the health department. So we were able to put together a really quick prototype for them to demonstrate like how that can work and how that could scale. The second one I'm really proud of, a tool called CharmCare, and that was in partnership with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And they gave out grants nationally, and they wanted a way to do better social needs screening across geographies. And so when someone went to, let's say, a hospital or a clinic, they wanted to know, okay, does this person have access to food? Does this person have access to sufficient resources? Does this person need financial counseling? What other wraparound services might they need? And, hospital A wasn't talking to hospital B, and hospital B wasn't talking to clinic C. And how do we aggregate all of that information in one spot to be able to navigate someone effectively to get the resources they need in the city? So we worked with the health department there as well to build a tool called CharmCare to get access to resources, but also allow the ability for a social needs screening to happen in all these locations. And Baltimore City was unique. The federal government gave it, I think, 20 or 30 of these grants, and Baltimore City was the only jurisdiction where all the major hospital systems backed the same plan. And so this is a tool now where all of them can share information. And so when you walk into a new place, they know where you've been, they know the resource you need, and you can be effectively routed to resources to help you in your journey.
And that can only happen because you put the pieces together. And again, I think it's important as you start to grow as a company that you can do more things because you're doing more things. But it's in the process of doing that you start to open up. So now Alabama comes along, Montgomery, and now you're working for the Air Force. And what are you doing there? And is it different from what you did in Baltimore?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but growing. So we're a decade into Baltimore and a year into Montgomery. So we're understanding all the pieces and how they fit together. But what really intrigued us about Montgomery was they have two major military installations down in Montgomery, and they pump out billions and billions of dollars of IT spend. And when we started to take a canvas, as we're just trying to understand, like, are we going to come, are we not? What really intrigued us was when you looked at, a lot of the universities, Alabama State University, Tuskegee, all the universities that are down there, there was a disconnect between the bases and what was happening in the community. And we couldn't really wrap our heads around, like, how do you have billions of dollars coming out and the kids don't have a place to go intern? They don't have local tech jobs, right? And so some dot wasn't connecting. And so that was our challenge to figure out how we can bring some of that connection together. So we went down to Montgomery, Alabama, and part of this initiative, this organization called BESTMAN, which houses the Mobile Center of Excellence for the Air Force, which means that the entire Air Force is looking for Montgomery, Alabama to figure out how to build mobile applications across the Air Force. This organization also houses all of the business applications for the entire Air Force globally out of Montgomery. And so we went, and part of their push was, how do you replicate what had been done successfully out in Boston and some of these other what they call software factories, where they get people off base, out of uniform, interacting with the community, interacting with vendors in kind of urban centers. And so we went down and partnered with the local Chamber of Commerce and set up their first facility. And so that first facility, I think it's housing a little over 100, 150 people right now. And so that happened, and a lot of them are Air Force. So Air Force is in there, vendors are in there, we're building technology together. And that was meant to last, I think, a little under a year, and they filled up that building in 45 days. And so the demand was there and the appetite was there, but we're really looking at how we can continue to grow that aperture and how do we now bring in the universities and how do we now bring in the community and say, okay, this isn't just about building mobile applications for Air Force. How do we train the community how to build mobile applications?
That's right.
So they have a pipeline that now comes in, and we're feeding, and the communities working together. So there isn't this concept of you're either on base or off base, and the two aren't playing together. And so that is a pretty exciting challenge about being in Montgomery, Alabama, and we're really excited about that work.
I need people to understand that we can't wait for somebody to come in and save us. I'm going to need a lot of you who are listening to not just pick up your mat, but get busy, roll up your sleeves, start to challenge yourself, and be in a position to help us help ourselves, because that's what you're doing, Delali. And I appreciate you being here. I love Fearless. I love what you're doing. This is a company with a heart. Fearless.tech. Check them out.